right, it is 6:02. We do have a quorum. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Leila Logeziko. I'm the chair of the Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee of Manhattan Community Board 5. Welcome. Tonight we have one application and then one item for discussion and action. A few words about how the meeting is going to proceed. Members, you're pretty familiar, but I want to underscore a few things, little reminders, and also let the applicant know how the meeting is going to run. So the applicant will have an opportunity to give a full and uninterrupted presentation. Once this presentation that we want complete yet concise concludes, members of the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions. Once this question period concludes, I will open up the floor to members of the public. And if there are any members of the public who wish to make comments or ask questions to the application and to the applicant, we will allow and facilitate that. After this period concludes, the applicant obviously will have an opportunity to address all of these questions and comments. We will move to business session. During business session, only members of the committee are allowed to discuss the matter, and we will start to formulate an opinion on the application that we just heard. A motion will be made and will be voted on. This motion, the vote of this motion will be presented to the full board of Community Board 5, which meets on Thursday, June the 12th, I believe. Please double check on the website to make sure that the date that I just mentioned is correct. The full board will hear a report by the chair of the committee, so that would be me, and will vote on the resolution that was presented. This vote by the full board becomes the official position of Community Board 5. This resolution will then be forwarded to the relevant agencies, in this case, the Department of City Planning and the City Planning Commission. If members of the committee, you have a conflict on this application, you should say so before you make any comments or ask any questions. And that's about it. So let's start. Tonight, the only application we have for our review is an application by Tower 49. And this is for a renewal of a certification for an open air cafe. And I think we have the applicants here with us. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you for having us this evening. My name is Amanda Ianatti. I'm representing the applicant in this application filed at the Department of City Planning. I'm joined tonight by Russell Stensland. He represents ownership of the building. I can just share my screen one moment as I present. Okay. Does everybody see an architectural plan on their screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this application pertains to Tower 49. It's a building located between East 48th and East 49th Street between 5th Avenue and Madison Avenue. The application is for a renewal of an open air cafe that is located in the Plaza fronting East 48th Street. You can see here's a site plan of the building. The cafe is located in the South Plaza here, fronting East 48th Street. There is also the North Plaza, and they're connected by an arcade through the building. This is just the site plan on the screen. This here is an off-season plan. Right here in the dashed line box area that I'm outlining here is where the cafe will be. This is the off-season plan. There's some photos along the top. There's open seating throughout the rest of the plaza, open to the public all year round. There's also movable table and chairs here to the right of the center planter, again, all year round. This is the off-season plan though, showing the cafe, which will be in this dotted line box during the months of April to October. The next plan sheet just shows some photos of both plazas. You can see the plantings, some of the seating, the benching, the landscaping, the street trees. This plan here is the on-season plan for the open air cafe. You can see that there are 12 tables within that area designated in the dotted line for the open air cafe, 12 tables and a total of 48 seats. Between both plazas, there is over 400 linear feet of seating open to the public. And then to the right of the planter here, there's another 30 seats and 6 tables open to the public. The seating in the cafe, I would like to mention, is also always open to the public. Everything in the plaza, as required by POP's rules, are open to the public at all times. The open air cafe is affiliated with a restaurant that's located on the ground floor of the building. It's currently in between the type of restaurant. It was formerly a Japanese sushi restaurant. It's now being built out to be a Joe Shanghai's home of the soup dumplings restaurant. They're doing some work currently. They are set to pick up construction and be open hopefully in about a month for takeout. Obviously, with everything going on, the cafe in the plaza will not be open until that is allowed. But they are hoping that they can finish their interior build out and be open for takeout in about a month. Finally, this plan just shows the amenities in the cafe. This is a typical, you can see a small picture of the typical table and the chair. There's also signage with the permitted hours of operation, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily in the months of April through October again. The plazas, both plazas, the North Plaza and the South Plaza, are fully in compliance with existing POPs regulations. All signage is in compliance. There's all required signage for it being publicly accessible, rules of conduct, again, the hours of operation for the cafe. And that's pretty much it. Again, this application seeks a renewal of the open air to permit the open air cafe in the South Plaza, affiliated with the restaurant on the ground floor of the building. The renewal is for an extension to allow it for another 3 years. This application has to be recertified every 3 years.
Thank you very much. Quick factual questions. Can you actually tell us when the original certification happened?
I believe 2004. There was a plaza redesign in 2004, and it's been continually renewed since then.
Okay. Are there any changes to the cafe as compared to what was certified the last time, 3 years ago?
So there are some slight changes due to DCP has redesigned some of their plaza design standards. So I'm going back to the cafe picture. You can see here there are 12 tables and they're lined up very linear, kind of perfectly in line with each other. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pull up the prior plans just so you can see the difference. 1 second. This plan, I'm going to zoom in. This plan was the former plan. You can see the tables were more staggered. They're kind of diagonal against each other. And then there was 2 tables off in the corner. So what we were working with city planning this time around was to consolidate the tables in a more linear fashion. pull them away from the seating along the west planters and keep them more tightly circumscribed with each other. Again, now I'll go back to the new plan in a more neat fashion.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. I will open up for questions by members of the committee. So I'm going to ask you to use the raise hand function. You would find it in your participants tab at the bottom of your screen. And I see that there is a raised hand, and it's Clayton. Clayton, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a question about the signage. I know that you are in compliance, but I'd love to have a little more detail about the location of the signs, in particular the signs which read seating is available to all regardless of purchase. Do you have a rendering of that actual sign, and can you tell us where those are located?
So I can point on the screen. Those are located along the wall of the plaza. They were part of this architectural plan set. Again, during this iteration of the plans with DCP, the approved plan set that I'm presenting here is particular to the open air cafe. They've asked us to remove some of the things that pertain to the larger plaza details in general. So this plan set I have here is only pertaining to the cafe. So at the moment, I don't have a photo of that plaza sign showing that seating is open to the public. I only have that one sign that pertains to the hours of operation for the cafe. But I can forward a photo of that sign to the board if you like. It's the typical pop sign that has the amenities, you know, how many trash cans, how many, you know, how much seating, how many, you know, things that are required, that typical pop sign. Yeah, it's there. I think
Okay.
there's two actually.
And so did you say 2 or 3 locations along the western?
I think that there is one along the west planter here. I believe, Russell, if you remember, if you could chime in, there's one along this west wall here for sure. And there's one on the north plaza as well. I would have to go back and actually, let me, you know what? If I can go back to the old plan set from 3 years ago, that actually had those in it. 1 second.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Okay, here is a sheet. Let me see if I can expand it. So you can see here, up here is where it's denoted sign indicated number 5, information plaque, South Plaza. That is the information plaque that says about the seating. Do you need me to zoom in a little bit more?
Yes, that would be helpful.
Okay, let me see here. Okay, here's the information plaque, South Plaza, indicating the linear feet of seating, the trees, the movable seats, movable tables, receptacles, open to the public 24 hours, accessible to person with disabilities. Again, here's another entry plaque. Welcome to the 12 East 49th Street Public Plaza, open to the public 24 hours. There's a through block passage sign. This little sign shows that you can go through the arcade between the plazas. That is in the planter, in the circle in the middle. There's a rules of conduct plaque. And then if I zoom out, it shows where all of these signs are located on the plan. So for instance, where does it say sign 5? Looking. Here's the entry plaque here. Existing entry plaque is here. Open air cafe hours of operation sign is here. Mounted lights. Here is the through block passage sign in the middle of the center planter. Here's another entry plaque on the other side of the wall. I guess that was it.
So on none of these signs are you required to specifically say that a purchase is not required?
No, there's no requirement to say a purchase, no.
Okay, that is something that we have asked of prior applicants at the time of renewal, just so that people understand the appearance of an outdoor cafe is a very easy psychological deterrent to people believing they can sit.
Understood.
And so we have in the past, and Layla, I defer to you about how we would proceed with that, but we have asked applicants to elect to add that signage, language to existing signage or additional signage near the perimeter of the actual cafe seating for that purpose.
Okay, that would be something we could discuss with city planning. You know, the POPs regulations and the signage in particular are very specific. So I'm not sure if they would even allow that type of language, but we can ask city planning.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll leave it to Layla to be specific about this. I do know that going to city planning about it is pointless. I think they will allow you to do it, but they will not allow you to certify that as part of the plans with them. So it's something that you can agree to do with us and just in good faith and not actually have it be something that's certified with city planning, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, exactly. As you said, Amanda, the rules are actually very, very strict.
Right.
And, deviating from the rule is simply impossible. We've gone actually through that, so we we understand the way they operate. It's unfortunate, but you know it is what it is. So basically, what we have done in the past with other cafes that are located within POPs, you know, mostly in Midtown, is reaching an agreement with the applicant, where basically they would elect to add signage that would be approved or that would not raise any objections from the Department of City Planning.
Okay.
But that would basically specify that the tables are open to the public and that purchasing is not required. As Clayton said, psychologically, if you see that a waiter is hovering and bringing a cup of coffee or a plate of food, people will tend to believe that it is a private cafe and that consumption is required to be allowed to sit there. So we have found that putting signage, and we've had a number of configurations. One cafe on 53rd agreed to do little tent cards on the tables. And then another one agreed to put a sign, a sort of like a standing sign, sandwich sign, by the entrance of the cafe to notify any potential users that
certainly. Yeah, something like the card on the table wouldn't be something that appears on the plan, so it really shouldn't be a problem then for city planning. So yeah, certainly. Russell, do you have any comments to that? You're on mute, Russell, you're on mute.
Russell, you're pressing the camera button.
Hello?
There you go. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, I was trying to speak before. I guess I was on mute. But the prior restaurant, I think the last time when we went to city planning 3 years ago, I don't know, it was Clayton that brought it up again, but the last cafe put a sign on the stanchion, table seating is open to the public. So this restaurant has never opened yet, but that was the intention, that he'll put that up too. The same sign, seating is open to the public.
Fantastic. Okay. Excellent. Excellent.
Okay.
So that's very good news. Moving on, I see that Nancy has her hand up. Nancy, go ahead with your question.
It doesn't look like the tables and chairs are socially distanced. And so I don't think this plan will stand for our reopening of Manhattan. So has anyone looked at that? Because it looks to me like the tables are too close together.
No, I mean, no, the design of the open air cafe, wasn't designed in, in the current, situation, honestly. I don't know when, in restaurant, even though it's outside, I don't know when dine-in, this is considered a dine-in service, is even going to be allowed. So
Well,
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Well, I think we need to see a socially distanced plan. I would like to see that. I think it's very important.
Well, the square footage of the obstruction of the cafe is something that's, again, tightly circumscribed. The outline, the placement of the plan, again, is tightly circumscribed. So that would be a redesign at the moment with city planning to push the tables out 6 feet. I'm not sure if that even complies with the POP standards and the open air cafe standards. I think if anything, it would probably be, they would not be able to use maybe every other table as opposed to redesigning the layout.
So if I can, underscore that, it is terra incognita for everybody. We have never been in this situation. It is very new. There's going to be tremendous changes around many aspects of pedestrian life in Midtown. Pops and cafes being one of them. We understand that the governor actually just gave the go-ahead for outdoor dining in most of the state. This is something that is supported by the city, but that means that the rules are going to change. Whether it is for a sidewalk cafe that is under the rules and regulations of DCA, or a cafe and a pub that is under the rules of the Department of City Planning. I think that there will be a broad new set of rules that will be put in place. And I think that, going forward, certainly we're going to see designs that incorporate those requirements. I think that it is probably fair to say that, once those requirements have been, spelled out by the city council and then ratified by the mayor, then the applicant in that particular instance, but all operators will have to adapt. So I don't know that it's really incumbent on us right now to ask the applicant to redesign the cafe. I think it's incumbent on us on calling that it is absolutely necessary, and it is going to be up on the city council and the city agencies to figure out what the requirements are going to be. And we can certainly say in our resolution that once these rules are in place, we want this particular cafe to be fully compliant. I think that would be a fairer way to address this issue, Nancy. I see that you have your hand up, Nancy. I would love to hear your thoughts. Nancy, you're on mute.
Okay, we want this restaurant to succeed. We want to support you in this open air cafe. And so I just would like the applicant to keep in mind that things are going to change, and it will benefit this, this restaurant to be able to have outdoor dining as soon as the city sets the rules. So that was my concern. I think we want these outdoor cafes to really succeed in our district. So that was my whole point. Okay.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. And I think that the committee agrees, and probably the full board, that there's going to be tremendous changes, and we want these operators to be successful and to be compliant and to keep everybody safe. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we should add some language to that effect in the resolution. Do we have any further questions by members of the committee? I don't see any raised hand button pushed. Okay, so seeing none, I'm going to open up the floor to members of the public. Do we have any questions or comments by members of the public? And you would also use the raise hand button. Yeah, we have Yesenia Guzman. So Luke, are you able to permit Yesenia?
Yesenia, you're all good to go. Yesenia, you can unmute yourself.
You're on mute. If you can introduce yourself and ask your question or make your comment. Your microphone is mute. You need to unmute yourself.
Let's just give Yesenia a moment. Yesenia, there you are.
There we go. There we go. Sorry, the screen disappears where it says unmute yourself. So I was trying to get it back. My apologies.
No problem. Go ahead, introduce yourself and go ahead with your question.
Of course, my name is Yesenia Guzman, a resident of the local area, and I was joining just to gather the details, and very exciting to have the open air cafe. As previously mentioned, it is one of the few things approved to open, and for us New Yorkers to finally enjoy as the shutdown kind of comes to an end. I just was curious if they could confirm the name of the restaurant. I know they said it was a Japanese.
No, the prior one was Japanese. This one is
Okay.
Joe's Home of the Soup Dumpling. It's the son of Joe's Shanghai, which is in Chinatown and Flushing, and they were on 56th Street, west of Fifth Avenue, and then moved
Got
from
it.
there to here.
Perfect. So Joe's Dumpling. Got it. All right, that was all. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions or comments by members of the public? Okay, no raised hand. So we will now move to business session. During business session, only members of the committee discuss the matter. I will ask you guys to use the raise hand function again, and I am eager to hear your comments. Who wants to start? Clayton.
You raised my hand for me. I am fully in support. I think this is great. I think they're clearly very interested in doing what's best for the public. I have no doubt that they will adapt their plans appropriately as far as social distancing once there's guidance about how open air cafes are required to. And I don't have any doubt that they'll do that in an appropriate way. And I think that they're agreeing to commit to the additional signage is also very promising. So I support.
Thank you. Nancy.
We have a resolution that we used for another cafe in a plaza in the 50s, if you remember that one, Layla. And it has very specific language about the signage and the tent tables. And I can offer that to whoever will be writing this resolution. It goes into the specifics of what Clayton was talking about. I don't know if you remember, we covered every aspect of that. You recall that?
Yeah, that was for Fogo de Chao, I think.
Yes, right. That would be very similar to this. It might be a little different, but certainly the same for the signage.
Yes, absolutely. Otherwise, generally speaking, are you in favor of this application?
I am definitely in favor of this application. I think this is what's going to revive our city, and I'm very excited that this applicant has come at this time. I want them to do the socially distancing so they can open up as soon as possible. Without the social distancing of the tables, it's going to take a lot longer, and we don't want to wait, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Other comments, or let me phrase it differently. Does anybody have an objection to this proposal? All right, so seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve with added language as we just discussed about signage and keeping in mind that social distancing will be necessary, calling on the city agency and the council to quickly come up with the new rules so that those businesses can operate while providing all the necessary safety to patrons, pedestrians, employees, and
Second.
users. All right, first vote of the evening. Dave Akalis.
Yes.
Thank you. Nick.
Yes.
Julie.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Tristan.
Yes.
Thank you. EJ.
Yes.
Jen. I am not sure that Jen is with us. Okay, she is not. Ed. Ed is not with us either. John.
Yes.
Evan.
Yes.
Clayton.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
And Layla, I'm a yes. Did I forget anyone? Okay, I got everyone. Fantastic. Thank you very much to the applicant. Thank you for a great presentation. As I said, the resolution will be presented to the full board of Community Board 5 on Thursday, June the 12th. And given that it's a unanimous vote, I really don't anticipate that there would be any controversy at the full board.
Thank you. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you so much. All right, so moving on, a couple of announcements first that I realized I should have done at the beginning of this meeting, but it's not too late. As you know, it is the new member season. Land use is slightly different. As you know, new members are almost never appointed directly to the land use committee. And therefore we don't have any new members per se, but Dave Akalis, who has been on the board for a number of years, has joined our committee. He used to serve on the Landmarks Committee, and I poached him away from my other committee so that he can come and work with us. As you know, Dave lives in the 50s in Manhattan, and his neighborhood has been dealing with tremendous change and growth, not always good growth. So his perspective will be invaluable. So welcome, Dave. All right, so the second part of our meeting is really a discussion item with bits of action that I believe we should take. And I think that, you know, it's you've been through the exercise before. Most of the other committees did the same exercise, you know, sort of like brainstorming, grasping, you know, the impact of COVID-19 on the city and more specifically on our district. I think that this kind of exercise has its limits. We don't have a magic wand. We are still in the middle of this health crisis that has tremendous ramifications and impacts in so many areas. And, you know, it would be a little foolish to imagine that we're going to pass a resolution that will, you know, address all the issues or, you know, point to what would be the right direction. Instead, I have put together a little agenda that I shared by email yesterday that is really just, you know, to guide our conversation. But there are a number of steps that I think are really necessary for us to take. The first one is that, as you know, the mayor has appointed you know, a series of councils that are you know, group of people who have some expertise in their field. So he appointed a council on healthcare that is, you know, made up of doctors and scientists and you know, statisticians. He put together a council on faith and, you know, with rabbis and priests and pastors and imams. Surprisingly, he has appointed very, very few planners and architects. And very, very troublingly, he has appointed 0 community board members or community organization individuals, you know, members of community organizations. I was personally really shocked that you know, the engagement by the mayor with the communities. You know, we know our districts better than anybody else. Would be totally absent, and I don't think it's a good idea. And right now, it doesn't appear that we have any formal role in you know, providing input on what's going to happen in our district, which, you know, once again is really not a good idea. So the first item that I would like to discuss with you guys is you know, passing a resolution calling on the mayor to basically open up these panels and appoint community board members, and certainly to involve us. And the reason why I think it's really important that we are involved is that CB5 is, you know, we're the business district. We are so critical to the health and vitality and recovery of the entire city. That I really believe that our voice should be present. So those are my thoughts, but I would love to hear what you have to say about that, how that could shape up. I think it should be a resolution, but you know, I'm certainly open to hearing your thoughts on content and form of this request and advocacy. So I see Nancy. Yes, Nancy, go ahead.
So the mayor gave a speech. I've been watching him every day, and he talked about how he wanted clergy, and block associations to join in with him on how to plan the reopening and what we're going through. But he did not mention community boards. He did not mention bids. And I was kind of surprised about that because our community board is focused on business. So I would support what you are talking about, Layla. I think it's very important that we're involved in this. We know the community. We walk through the community. We see what's been happening. We see what's going on. My concern is that many of the people on these panels may not know much about our community firsthand. They may not walk through it. And we need people that know and understand the community and watched it develop over a number of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys think it should be a resolution? I personally think that it should be a resolution because I really think that it should be presented to the full board. It should be strong, and I don't know. I believe that resolutions actually are stronger than letters.
I think it should be a resolution because all of our electeds read the resolution and that's how they find out what our concerns are. So I definitely think it should be a resolution.
Okay. Other members of the committee, what are your thoughts? Any reservations on doing what we're talking about?
We have some raised hands.
Sorry. Clayton.
I certainly don't have reservations about it. If anything, I think we could go further and advocate for a more formal mechanism of sharing information for review and soliciting feedback from community boards on an ongoing basis as the reopening happens for so many different issues. But I think that we should actually ask for more of a formal ongoing back and forth, because there have been prior press conferences and things where the phrase "in consultation with community boards" has been bandied about, and it is meaningless. No one even knows what that means, and nothing occurs. So who's consulting? In consultation with us, according to who? Who is doing the consulting? Because we are not being consulted. So I absolutely support what you're talking about. I do think it should be a resolution, but I actually think we should go further. As you know, we usually get, we never get everything we ask for, and sometimes we get 80%, sometimes we get 10%, but we want to ask for as much as we possibly can so that the response might be as strong as we possibly can get.
Yeah, I agree. Evan.
Yeah, so I'm actually not surprised that this administration kind of eschewed community board interest, and I think it's upsetting, I think, given our position within the city, to be excluded from that process. And I would urge us to put the strongest possible resolution that we could and bring it to the full board, as has been said, and then also to make sure that we have a suggestion for what the right mechanism for touching base with us would be. And the only question I have to the group is, should we include some of our objectives or key concerns in that resolution, or should we try to do that after we are able to hopefully establish that communication?
Yeah, good point. I will give my sentiment on that question. I think that the resolution should really focus on community board engagement and suggestions on how that should shape up. And then our recommendations, I think, should also be voiced, but in a separate document. Ryan, welcome back, Ryan. We're happy to have you back.
It's nice to be back. Agree with the idea of doing this as a resolution and putting some content in there specifically about what community board engagement would look like. I am struck by the fact that we in New York and around the country see the power of collective action and what that can do. And so I'm curious if a number of our other brothers and sisters on other community boards would join us in saying this. And so whether it's something where we could encourage the passage of similar resolutions by them, there could be something that could be delivered as a package or otherwise. I defer to Vicky and others to consider the wisdom of that recommendation, but there could be something there where not only our voice, but those of our other community boards in the borough and beyond could be compelling as well.
Yeah. So as you know, the borough president organizes a borough board meeting, a monthly borough board meeting that Vicky attended last week. And Vicky, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to share that you basically mentioned to the rest of the group that is basically made up of chairs of the other community boards of Manhattan, that we were surprised that no community board members were appointed or consulted, that there was no formal engagement that was spelled out by the mayor. And I think the response by the board president herself and her staff and other community board chairs was actually very supportive. I don't know if you want to speak further on that, Vicky. Oh, you're on mute. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I brought it up, and there were a lot of nodding and head shaking in agreement. Gail was very enthusiastic about getting all boards on board, asked me if we would be doing a resolution. I said, yes, I'm so glad I did, since you all agreed. And the thought, the deputy borough president said, we will get all the other boards. And in fact, I think they wanted to go even beyond Manhattan. They wanted to reach out to all 5 boroughs. But definitely everyone will be on board, or most of the boards, certainly Manhattan boards, will be on board with this. It's really important.
Yeah, great. Okay, all right. Are there any other, thank you so much, Vicky. Are there any other thoughts on what this resolution should include? Anything else that you guys want,
Some hand raised.
Sorry. Mike.
Yes, I agree it should be a resolution supporting everything that you and Vicky and the borough president outlined. But I just think that it's just a symptom of the overall disrespect to community boards, that we don't really have any power. And so I think we should have a separate resolution. I don't think it has to be together with this one, but that community boards should have some type of veto power through ULURP or through Department of City Planning or DOB or something to cause them to respect the community boards.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that we have lamented and complained about for pretty much as long as I have been on the board. It is becoming more acute and more critical now. But you would be comfortable with leaving this out of this resolution, or not making it a main ask, but really focusing on getting ourselves to the a seat at the table. Would that be okay with you, Mike?
Yes, that'd be fine. I just think that this is not the first time, and it probably won't be the last time. So, but
Yeah.
Yes, it should be a separate resolution.
Okay. Dave Kellis.
Yes, both Clayton and Mike make very good points. And I've been getting a lot of email from the neighbors recently about how they've got a feeling they've been deserted by the city government. They're not getting any feedback from council members or the mayor or anybody. So whatever we can do to strengthen our position, I'm all for it. And I think Clayton and Mike's points are very good. I agree with them.
Yeah, thank you. Nancy?
Okay, so I think there's a couple of things that could happen with this resolution. I think a resolution's fine, but I think we have to have an action plan. And so, Vicky, what about a task force, a study group? We get our power in the past, or have gotten our power in the past, through task forces. And so I think we should appoint our own task force, our own study group. And I think that people should start working on this right away. I don't know exactly what it is, but I do think there has to be an action plan with the resolution. We write the resolution and then we say, here's how we're going to take this on. So
here is my thought. I totally agree with you, Nancy. I think that the task force is really our committee. I think that we're going to have a lot of work. We're going to have to really, be diligent and be invested. What is in front of us is enormous. And it is really very critical and very important, both on the substance, it's like, how do we go about, reimagining Midtown in this health crisis? And there are, so many parts to it. How does it impact businesses and office space, and what impact it's going to have to parks and restaurants, and I mean it's endless. Schools. So we're going to have to work on that, and I think me, I'm very much in favor of task forces, but I really think that this is the committee should basically embrace that. That's really a whole layer of land use and planning that we basically need to roll our sleeves and start working on.
So then should we apply look for money for a grant to do our 10-year planning study? What is it called? It's a something A. There's a
Reso A funding.
No, it's not Reso A. It's something else. It's a planning study that the community board can take on specifically, and the name is escaping me right now. But it's something A, 18A, I think it is, an 18A planning study.
Yeah, sure. We have
done that as a community board, and it's always been there, but we have to find the money, which is tricky to do that, or we do it ourselves.
We can be resourceful, but by all means. Just to wrap up this discussion around this action, given that we have much more potentially to discuss. I see that Ryan has his hand up. Ryan, go ahead, and then I want to sort of like summarize and come up with the plan, and then we can move on. But go ahead, Ryan.
I was thinking particularly about the task force action plan idea from Nancy. I think for anything like that we are doing now, so much of the execution of that is going to be done by the next generation of municipal officials who represent us. Whoever the next mayor will be, the next borough president, the next city council members, and so forth. And so thinking about a time horizon that would allow us to get those recommendations into the bloodstream of the policy discussion in the meat of when these people will be selected for those offices, I think is important. And it goes across so much of what we're talking about here, but I think there are some very specific time horizons that we should think about in how we structure all of this planning.
Yeah, very, very good point. Very good point. Okay, all right. So we're going to write a resolution. The resolution will call for community board engagement. And we're going to be a little selfish, but we're going to say that, really CD5 must have a seat at the table, and a formal ongoing mechanism for input to be provided to various city agencies. Is everybody okay with that? Nancy, I see that you have your hand up.
I do. In your email that you sent to us, you came up with 5 issues.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on that.
I think those are the issues that would go into the resolution. So just wanted to say, excellent job, Layla. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so we have a resolution, we have a motion, and let's come up with a second just for the sake of it.
Second.
And we will take this resolution to a vote. I know it's really a formality, but we have to. Dave?
Yes.
Nick?
Not on.
Nick He had to do something really quick.
Okay, Julie,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
EJ,
Yes.
Jen is still not with us. Ed,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Evan,
Yes.
Clayton,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yeah.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Layla. Okay, and I'm sorry, Andreas, you are with, and I don't have you on my list, but are you a public member?
I'm a public member, yes.
Fantastic. All right. So
Hello, everyone.
yeah, this is this. Thank you. Thank you. I will add you to the list. Andreas, how do you want to vote on this resolution?
Yes.
Fantastic. And how do you want to vote on Tower 49 that we just reviewed?
Yes, as well.
Fantastic. All right. And sorry that I didn't call you sooner.
No worries.
Okay. All right. So we have this resolution. I think this is really very important. Now there are a number of issues that I have underscored in the email that I sent. I don't know that we necessarily want to tackle all of them. I think that there is one that I feel very passionately about. Because it is something that we have been faced for, month after month, year after year, decade after decade. We have seen applications that are guided or sponsored by the Department of City Planning, and they have been adamantly telling us that it's not their job to plan. We had that for when we had the hearing on the mechanical room loophole that drove us berserk because it's in their name. They're the Department of City Planning. They have to plan, and yet they have been refusing to plan. The city actually doesn't have a 10-year plan, which is a mandate of for any municipality in pretty much, I mean, it's like common practice, but in the state of New York, it's a mandate. And New York doesn't. There's no guiding principle on how the land should be developed or not developed. Should we do, I don't know, more historic preservation? Should we do more commercial development? No plan. Basically, the city, and especially Midtown, relies solely on market forces. What that has caused is a number of effects. One of them is the closure of 20 hospitals in the course of 20 years. So then guess what? When we have a little global pandemic, then we overwhelm our hospital system. What does it cause? It causes super tall towers that are empty. I mean, I can't even tell you how heartbroken I was to see these empty towers while knowing that healthcare workers had to commute to come and work because these towers are empty, where actually before being towers, these sites were residential buildings, some of them affordable, which is fair to assume that some of them may have been occupied by doctors and nurses. This is just a miscarriage of zoning and planning that is just horrible. I would maybe go even as far as saying criminal. And I think that if there's one thing we can say now, is that we have to call on the city and not only this administration, but also send a message for the next administration that the city must plan. And then, what this planning should look like is, we can, put our thinking caps on and, come to, some sort of sense of what that should be. But certainly closing hospitals, we know now, and we knew all along, but now we have, been given the proof in the most dire way. Closing hospitals is a very bad idea. And building for vacancy is a very bad idea. Just to give you a couple of data points, the residential vacancy rate in Community Board 5 is 16%. The average for the city is 9%. Upper Midtown vacancy rate is 30%. 30% vacant. Billionaires Row, 42%. It is just, it's obscene, in my opinion, obscene. So I would be delighted if this committee were to pass a resolution, or maybe it's a letter, but I prefer resolutions, calling on the administration to plan. And then we would, go back to, working on what that plan should look like. But those are my thoughts. And EJ, yes.
I totally agree. Obviously, I think one theme that we've heard among all the committees is that there's new stuff that the coronavirus crisis has brought to bear, but there's also another set of crises that had been slow moving that were simply moved up to fast moving. And I think the planning and emptiness issue is a major one of those. The Billionaires Row buildings that were being built to remain empty simply became more empty when the people who were only showing up twice a year to occupy them ended up vacating the city entirely. It exacerbated existing problems and existing trends that we were already dealing with. So, I mean, I agree 100%. I don't know if we want to marry ourselves to certain policies. Like a pet policy of mine is a pied-à-terre tax that would hopefully address a problem like residential vacancy in a market-driven sort of way. That's a specific policy, and we don't need to marry ourselves to it. But I totally support at least addressing it as a problem in our resolution and saying that the city needs to approach it from a policy perspective. So 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah, great. I see that Clayton has his hand up. Clayton.
Yeah, of course, I totally agree. And all I would add, if we're talking about a 10-year plan, do we want to include a reference to the incredible lack of planning immediately evident in the mayor's new budget that is being proposed?
Yes.
Of course, it's a huge rabbit hole because it opens up every single possible element of life in the city. And if we want to be tailored and focused on what's appropriate for our committee, I think the most relevant data point from the proposed budget is that he is proposing to cut 40% of the capital budget for affordable housing. And at a time that phase 1 of reopening does include non-essential construction, I think we are going to see the pressures we've always had. Of course, it's all completely different and the economy is totally different, but now is the time to be talking about that. And for year number 1 out of this crisis, for there to be nearly half of the budget available for affordable housing, and I'm not even touching the Department of Youth and the Department of Education and all the other cuts he's proposing, while also eliminating virtually none of the NYPD's budget, I think that it is very relevant and well within our jurisdiction as the Land Use Committee to weigh in on that.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a very good point. So we will add language, if everybody's okay, we will add language on the lack of planning that is evident in the budget, and specifically pinpointing to cuts on affordable housing. Yeah, Dave.
Yes, here in Midtown, of course, with the Billionaires Row happening, we still have the same homeless people on the streets who have been here all along. And now that the homeless have to be moved out of shelters because of the overcrowding, because of COVID-19, they're taking over local hotels, which of course the local residents are upset about. The problem is that so much of the homeless, especially here in Midtown, is mental illness, and these people need hospitalizations. When you have these gigantic developments going on like Hudson Yards and like the far west 57th area where there's like 15 or 20 new buildings, the fact that no idea or concept of hospitalization for these poor homeless people that don't need people need affordable apartments, of course, but the way we treat our mentally ill homeless, and this is not, nobody talks about this when it comes to developing these super sites. So yes, if we could get some language in there about putting hospitalization back in, and especially targeting the homeless people.
Yeah, Julie, I want to call on you because I know that Beth is working on that issue. Is there anything that you can share? And I was under the impression, I did attend the Bex meeting last week. I was under the impression that the resolution that Bex is working on has some language to address that particular issue.
I'm not sure if we have anything addressing shelters at this point, but they did mention that they're using FEMA money to house these homeless people in hotels right now, which might run out in a few months, and they would need to move them back into shelters, but at a low density rate, so it can't move everybody back to allow for the social distancing that's needed. So there has been
specifically on the issue of providing mental health care to the homeless population, which is the biggest reason why individuals become homeless is because they suffer from mental illness.
I think that's something we should bring up for Index. I don't know if we addressed it specifically, mental illness.
Okay.
So,
given that it's more of a programmatic aspect rather than a land use and planning aspect, Dave, would you be comfortable if we share that with Bex, so that Bex that deals more with those agencies and the budget could fold it into a resolution? Would that be okay with you?
Yes, I would.
Okay, fantastic. So Julie, maybe Dave, you and I can continue to work together and formulate what kind of request we would like to make, and this is something that at the next Bex committee meeting you guys can discuss.
sure.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so on the city needs to plan resolution, do we have any further comments? Yeah, Ryan.
Julie, please go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to ask Layla if we wanted to touch upon COVID at all in this request.
On what, sorry?
On COVID-19, the 10-year plan. I know this is a short-term issue, but
yeah, I mean, the thought is really, planning for a post-COVID resilient New York City. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reason why we're pushing for that is that there is a great impetus and emergency caused by the pandemic. Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, I see that you have your hand up.
So there are some frameworks that exist for the city now to do some planning. Plan YC, obviously very focused on sustainability specifically, but there is a structure and a requirement to be refreshing that report and reporting on progress. One NYC, which is the next generation of that, I think really expanded the remit in a lot of ways and has a long time horizon. Land use as a framework within that is not particularly present in the way that I think about it. I mean, there are things that implicate land use, but it's not a kind of entry point for how that is structured. And so I would think about a couple of things. Number one, is it worthwhile or not to try to draft off of stuff that's going to keep happening? I mean, by council mandate, that needs to be renewed every 4 years and then updated every year. Do we want to insert the idea of this into that process somehow? Number one. And then number two, in terms of, and I'm sure we'd be thinking about this, whether or not you think the first part is a useful one. I think really clarifying which agency and agencies have what we wish to do, what things will be important. Because, if, for example, you think that One NYC or Plan YC is not particularly a planning document per se, really, I think giving some specificity to whom we want to do what would be important there. But I do think there's a lot about existing processes that we should strongly consider how we can both draft off of and shape.
Yeah, I agree that these sort of like requirements exist and they're fulfilled. The city is not in default, but they're totally hollow. Actually, Mike really sent me an email, and I hope it's okay, Mike, to share it with the rest of the group. But he really emphasized the fact that the only aspect that the city has been a little more involved in planning and shaping is environment, because it does matter to a certain group of individuals that the city has been catering to. The city has not been planning for hospitals and healthcare and education. Because it is, a group of constituents that they have decided to ignore, and then they have left, what they consider market to decide, how it's going to look like. I'm almost tempted to ignore the fact that these mechanisms exist because they're so hollow, and calling on their lack of substantial planning, to me, is more of a way to tackle that, because how can you close 20 hospitals in 20 years and with a straight face then be like, oh yeah, we were planning. And it's the scary part, I'm going to be very genuine. The scary part is that if we were so unprepared for that, what else are we unprepared for? So, yeah, which those processes, we should also, maybe try to use them more efficiently. Maybe we can do both in parallel.
Just one quick response, and then I'll move on. And I'm as sort of complicit in this as anybody. I've also not observed us commonly trying to sort of draft off of these things or use them as sort of bully pulpits to elevate our priorities either. And so I'll just put that on myself in terms of, I know that I've not done that before. Others may have done it, so I don't want to suggest otherwise. But these are things that significant amounts of energy and time go into, and by a lot of city staffers. And I think a new mayor would be looking for a lot of new wins coming off of a great new report about something. So, if millions of dollars and thousands of person hours will go into it, I think we should consider using it.
Yeah, point well taken. Point, yeah, you're totally right. I totally agree. Totally. All right, other thoughts, comments on that topic? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Okay, so basically, if everybody's okay, we would draft another resolution in which we would call on the city to do a more thorough job to plan and have a 10-year plan that would be specifically geared towards addressing the grave urban issues that we're going to be faced with due to COVID-19. And I don't know that we need to be specific on what the plan should consist of, but I think that in the coming month, we're going to have to do a lot of work thinking about what we believe should be our priorities. So I want to make sure that you guys are on board with going this route. All right, if I hear no comments, I will consider that you are on board. Okay, I see some heads shaking. Okay, so that will be our second resolution, and we're gonna take this to a vote.
So, Leila, you might want to just ask if there's input from the public.
Oh yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I will open up the floor to members of the public. Do we have any questions or comments, thoughts from members of the public on what we just discussed? Okay, so seeing none, let's move to taking a vote on that. Thank you for the reminder, though. So a resolution calling the city for a strong and thorough plan, pointing out to the failures of the past. We'll mention the hospital closures, vacancy, residential vacancy rates in our district, and more specifically around Midtown and Billionaires Row. And with an explanation that we're going to get to work and we will come up with what we believe is a strong plan for resilience for CB5. So that would be a resolution. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we're taking that to a vote. Dave?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tristan?
Yes.
EJ?
Yes.
Ed? Ed?
Yes.
Thank you. John?
Yes.
Evan?
Yes.
Clayton?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Andreas?
Yes.
And Leila, I'm a yes. Okay, great. All right, so those were the two resolutions that I felt were urgent to discuss and to pass. I'm very happy. Thank you very much, guys, for all the good thoughts and supporting these steps. As you have seen in my little memo, there are many more themes that I think we could discuss and we should discuss. I don't know that we necessarily have a pressing urgency to discuss them now. I think that we may want to, appoint ourselves CB5 10-year plan task force, and get organized and go to work, so that maybe next month we can target one particular theme, and then in sort of like rolling mechanism, go through what we believe are important. Because those are deep and complicated issues. We don't want to get it wrong. We don't want to haste it. So if that's okay with you guys, I think that we can do quite a bit of work offline before the month of July when we can reconvene. Would that be okay with you guys? Okay. Very briefly before we adjourn, I want to touch upon the recent violence that has unfolded in our district. I don't know that it is necessarily our role as the land use and zoning committee to really deal with that, but we happen to be the last committee of the cycle to meet. So, I think that the violence certainly has a direct impact on our businesses, and we don't really have a business committee as the other community boards may have, but the thought of having big swath of retail packing up and deciding that they're going to leave New York would be very troubling and very detrimental to our district. So, if there is an appetite by the group to discuss it, I think we should, grab this this opportunity. I don't know if we want to make a statement, take a position. We don't have to, but I feel that opening up the floor to that topic is appropriate right now. And I see that Dave Achilles has his hand up. Dave.
I'll make this very quick. I just heard from Midtown North, and they're saying that people have been leaving behind boxes of bricks and rocks around the neighborhood. So some of this violence is being planned ahead of time. Keep an eye out. If you notice anything like that, let the police department know. If you see a big shopping bag or something, check it out, or a crate or a container with bricks or boxes, loose bricks or boxes, rocks, let the police know.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, you and I have been chatting quite a bit those past few days. Luke actually put together a little slideshow of the photographs that you took. If that's okay, Luke is going to share his screen. It just, so Nancy, maybe you want to speak on those photographs and tell us a little bit what has been your experience.
Over the past couple of days, I have been walking from my home on 16th and 7th up 6th Avenue to 23rd Street to Madison Square Park, and then back home by Broadway from 23rd to 16th Street. And our retail area on Broadway and 5th Avenue are now completely encased in plywood. I took these pictures 2 days ago, and we walked up yesterday and again today, more stores were covered that had been hit the night before. So I'm very troubled by this because this is not very pleasant. These buildings are beautiful buildings, and everything is covered with plywood. We are having, retail is not what, ground floor retail has not been as vibrant as it has been in the past. This is just gonna make it worse. So I'm very concerned about this, and I feel that we need to write a resolution about our outrage for all of these stores that are boarded up. What's happening is these looters are coming back the day after with crowbars and with hammers, and are actually now peeling back the plywood. This now has been covered in plywood. This when they missed this one. But then the next night, this is what happened. So they're coming and they're peeling back the plywood. Here's the inside of the store. Sephora was hit quite badly. And I don't know what we do, but I think we have to express our outrage that our retail areas in Community Board 5 have been very severely hit, and we're very concerned. This, you can see the glass on this, it's all broken, you can see, and they took everything out. So the glass is, it's all safety glass, right? So that's what safety glass looks like when you smash it. But I'm very disturbed by it. This was not covered, it's now covered, this one is now covered in plywood the night after. So I took about 84 photographs, and we spend all this time in our landmarks committee being concerned about window replacement, and now you look at our plywood world. We're living in now a plywood world, and it's just really upsetting to me. That's basically what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Nancy, for sharing. I see lots of hands are up. Clayton.
I agree. It's heartbreaking, and I think that the damage that it will do psychologically for our district and recovery in the long term is also great. And one thing that I would like to add to our consideration of this conversation, there has been extensive documentation and reporting by citizens on Twitter over the last several days about what seems to be a somewhat baffling strategy by the NYPD to choose to target individuals like healthcare workers who are walking home with blood on them, or food delivery workers because it's after curfew. And these are people who are people of color. The things I read about, this did not happen in our district, but the looting goes unchecked, especially near Times Square. I saw footage of 14 cops armed, standing, talking to each other at 51st and Broadway while rampant looting was happening 2 blocks away. There are people tweeting about witnessing squad cars driving past storefronts in our district where people are actively walking out holding stuff, and the squad car doesn't stop. What is the strategy? And why is it that the worst of the problem in our district is not being addressed, but then individuals who are not participating at all, who are completely innocent and peacefully standing by or coming home from work or working, are being targeted by the NYPD? And I find that my outrage about all of this includes the NYPD.
I just wanted to say that Saks Fifth Avenue is now surrounded by barbed wire.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Evan.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to be brief in my comments. I don't foresee us writing a resolution on this topic that I'd be willing to support. I think the issues are too nuanced and the overall context is too charged and too layered for us in this committee to really comment on that. So I won't be supporting any resolution on this topic.
Okay, thank you. EJ.
I would say my position is sort of halfway to where Evan is. If we write a resolution, my main concern is who we addressing it to and what action are we calling for, instead of just amorphous disappointment. Generally our resolutions are geared towards action and calling for that kind of action from specific individuals. You know, I will go so far as to say that 2 nights ago, the problem did indeed seem to be an NYPD focus on the peaceful demonstrations, which seemed to leave all of Fifth Avenue unprotected for looting. That was incredibly strategically unfortunate. It does not seem to have been repeated the next night. So I would simply say at this point that I don't know what, in many cases, we and particularly on other committees like transportation, we would like to see different enforcement behavior from NYPD, but we often have a hard time figuring out how to package it into, and just as a community board, we often don't have the relationship with NYPD to ask for change in policy or change in strategy in a very effective sort of way. And so my first and foremost question is, if we were to pass a resolution, what are we asking for? Who are we targeting it at, and what exactly is the policy that we would be asking for? And if we can't answer those questions, I'm not sure exactly what the purpose of a resolution would be.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Rachel.
Yeah, exactly what Evan and EJ said were my comments. So I won't take more of our time, but yeah, I think it's a very, I won't actually say anything else. They really took the words out of my mouth. So.
Thank you, Rachel. Nick.
It doesn't sound like there's a support for a resolution, and I think I'm okay with that. But maybe we can use the resources of the board office and the police council that we participate on to ask these questions and to see if there's any explanation. I mean, maybe Luke can comment on the resources we have, the connections we have to the police to ask these questions and find out what's going on.
Yeah, I would also mention that Vicky has been in touch with the board president's office as well as the speaker's office. The speaker is also the council member where this violence has been perpetrated. Certainly for Lower Fifth Avenue in Corey's district. So I think that the sentiment that I have heard from residents and small businesses in the district is that they feel really abandoned. They don't understand how something of such magnitude can happen, and it's not a one-off incident that was not properly addressed by the NYPD, and stuff happens. It has been going on now for 3 days. It's really very, very disturbing. I'm with you mostly on the idea of a resolution. I'm very glad that we're discussing the matter tonight, but I think that it's probably a good idea to hold off on a resolution for all the reasons that EJ just underscored. But as Nick said, maybe we can reach out to the NYPD through the various channels that we have, and we can continue with the help and guidance of Vicky to reach out to elected officials so that they, at least we would like, I'm speaking for myself, I would like to hear from them. I would like to hear from our elected officials on how they assess the situation, what they make of it, and what kind of leadership they are going to push for or implement. Right now, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard Corey say anything really specific to what's happening in our district. I haven't heard the mayor, certainly. And I think that pushing for those kinds of answers would seem like a good idea. And we don't have to do it through a resolution. I think it should be a resolution to be counterproductive. I see that Nancy has her hand up, and then I want to acknowledge that one of our attendees also wishes to speak. So Nancy, go ahead, and then I will open up to members of the public.
Is there some agency or elected official we could reach out to ask them to have a public hearing about this so that people could come and express their concern about it, where they would someone would come and speak, similar to when we were closing down the 14th Street busway. I mean, it wouldn't be the same way, it would be done on Zoom, but is there a way we could encourage someone, not us, but to have a public hearing about this at some point in time so that people's voices can be heard?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Definitely something that we should follow up on. I want to acknowledge that we have members of the public who wish to speak. So I think Jasenia wanted to speak, but her hand is down now, and July wants to speak. So I will go with July first. July, go ahead.
Thank you, Leila. So I want to just bring up the topic of property taxes. And this came up at our BEX committee meeting last week, but ultimately we did not have a resolution on it. So I'm not sure how much of a discussion that has been on the city level and on the state level, but a gentleman who participated discussed his concerns at our BEX meeting last week, mentioned that, you know, in supporting the outdoor street dining idea, he said, given the 50% capacity in dining indoors, it does not make sense for him to operate. It's got to be 75% for him to keep the business as a going concern. And with outdoor dining, that's possible, given the COVID health concerns. And similarly, I spoke to a first door shop owner on my block, who of course closed down for, you know, a few days, late March, but he realized he did not want to stay home. And at the same time, the city was calling on the industry, the garment industry, to make PPEs. So he called back his employees and partners and started making PPEs for the city. But even with the city contract, he is not able to pay full rent. And I asked him, so what is that number for you that makes sense? He said, if I can get a 15-20% reduction on my rent, then that makes sense to me. But
those questions, I think, are really BEX questions, because it really touches on the budget more than really on a land use and planning concern.
Sure. So I'm sorry if I'm giving too much of a background. I guess the point is, in terms of land use within the city and specifically in the district, the question we want to ask is, are we better off having the current stores, you know, office buildings, residential buildings where they are, come up with some sort of solution to maintain the use, whether that includes some sort of property tax temporary reduction or some other means. That's the land use aspect.
Yeah. So in the coming month, as I said, I don't know actually when you joined the meeting, but so tonight we passed two resolutions, but going forward, we're really going to tackle a number of themes that are you know, relevant, and you know, because we've been tremendously impacted by this health crisis. The tax revenue and specifically the tax revenue generated by real estate taxes is something that we are going to discuss, because you know, it is a holistic system, you know, and if one part of it basically, and this is something that, you know, we talk about all the time, you need to strike the right balance. Having too much of this or too little of that can have a very detrimental effect. So we will be talking about the use and the tax balance, so that the city can remain sustainable. This is something that this is a big component in the resiliency. But I think that we all agree that right now we have not formulated a plan. We have not researched the matter thoroughly enough. I don't think that it's going to be the first topic that we tackle. So, I don't think we're going to be talking about that in July, but definitely, come September, October, the committee will be more ready to have answers to these questions. But rest assured that, it is a very pressing question that the committee will work on.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see any more hands raised on the part of the attendees. I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak. Members of attendees, do you wish to ask any questions? Okay, so seeing none, let's move to a business session. So on the issue of violence, I think that the consensus that we don't feel that a resolution would be the right tool at that particular moment. I want to make sure that everybody is fine with that. I see heads shaking. Okay, great. And I think also all agree that continuing advocacy, reaching out to the NYPD through the various channels we have, reaching out to our elected officials and inviting them to provide some sort of response and also comfort maybe. You know, I think that being comforted a little bit would go a long way from our elected officials. Would be a good thing, and you know, obviously it's a fast evolving situation, and you know, we will continue to monitor. Thank you so much, Nancy, for taking these photos and sharing them with the committee. And I think that concludes our meeting, unless there's anyone who wants to add anything. I think that that would be it. All right. So thank you guys so much. It was very productive, and I wish you a really great month of June. And we will be in touch offline via email so that we can get to work and prepare for the July meeting.
Thanks, Leila.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leila.
Have a good month.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.